Well, studio, we welcome now the Secretary of State of the great state of Mississippi, Michael Watson. Mr. Secretary, it's Election Day across the Magnolia State. What's happening out there?
It is, and we've been up and at 'em early today, and really excited about Election Day. Obviously, the weather is beautiful here in Jackson, Mississippi, and we hope it is across the entire state. As you know, we saw absentee numbers that were higher than they were in 19, so we're hoping that predicts a great turnout today. We've got members of our team all around the state. We'll be in about 50 counties or so in different precincts, making sure the law is being followed. We don't just talk about it, we're actively out there. And just encourage all Mississippians, if you see something that looks a little bit odd, a little bit off, make sure you report that up to our office so we can get some attention to it quickly.
Well, I voted this morning around 7:30 or so. It was quite a positive experience. The poll workers were courteous, professional, efficient. Everything went smooth. I mean, is that what you're hearing from across the state as well? I know folks check in with you.
Yeah, it is. We've seen a couple of pictures of some lines around at different precincts, and then we've seen some precincts without lines. We've heard some issues about precincts running out of ballots, and that's an issue that's handled at the county level. What they're supposed to do is print out about 60% of all active voters, that number of ballots, and then they disperse those through the county at the different precincts. So sometimes they may guess a little bit wrong, and one precinct may be light, another precinct may be heavy, but then they can move those ballots around. So really just an average, normal election day here in Mississippi. Nothing is ever perfect. But just thank the Lord for all of our poll workers who are out there spending their day making sure that this election runs smoothly.
No doubt about it. And like I said, my experience, not only today but in the past, is that they're always courteous. They always seem to be enthusiastic and really diligent about their service, their work there. And so I want to thank you and your team for making it a positive experience. I think that's important. And there's just very fast, move through in a hurry, no delay, no problems. I think I did see someone who maybe was at the wrong precinct. You know, sometimes those can change around, but the My Election Day tool that is available right there on the splash page at the Secretary of State's website is quite helpful. You just have to enter your name, or actually you don't have to do that. You just have to put in your zip code and then authenticate your address, and boom, it tells you exactly where to go, shows you what your ballot looks like.
That's exactly right. And just a really big thanks to Kyle Kirkpatrick and our office for coming up with that idea and then fleshing it out. And unfortunately today, he bought me some chocolate donuts that had sprinkles on them. So I'm kind of wondering how a guy so smart to build My Election Day could then bring sprinkles on the chocolate donuts. But look, a big thanks to our team here. They've done a phenomenal job. And one thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned those going into the precincts and having a smooth experience. We really enjoy getting out and doing that. And I hate to not be able to do that today since I'm on the ballot. I did not want to be in the precincts. Obviously, that would show maybe some preferential treatment. Didn't want to do that, but I hate that. I love seeing our poll workers and telling them thank you personally, and making sure that they're doing a great job out there. But really appreciate their help today.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about this DOJ situation, the Department of Justice of the United States, which says that, I guess it's keeping an eye, observing, right, voting in DeSoto and Madison counties. And you drafted a letter and you sent it to the DOJ. Rhino just read, in fact, who you addressed that to, the addressee. Tell us about this and how you're handling this.
Yeah, so they maybe, I guess there were some phone calls late last week, and they were looking at both Panola and Madison County. And we saw a couple of years ago where they looked at Florida, they looked at Missouri, and unfortunately what we've seen is a slanted DOJ. And typically, historically, that usually means they're coming in to pick a fight. And unfortunately for them, our laws say that they're not welcome into our precincts. And so we wanted to make sure that they're aware of our laws. And basically, they're not an election official, and so they cannot be in our precincts, and they cannot be within 30 feet of our precincts. So that's what we sent them a letter and said, look, you can come down to Mississippi, you can enjoy the view from 30 feet, but outside of that, you are not welcome in our precincts.
What exactly is it that they feel they need to observe? I mean, have there been any such anomalies or so-called voter suppression or situations, and in particular in those counties that they feel like, well, we got to dispatch some folks, straight from the federal government here to make sure those people in Mississippi are complying with federal law, essentially.
The one thing I can think of with Madison, I know we saw a couple of issues about some precinct changes, which, by the way, again, my election day, that information comes directly from the county. So if you ever have questions, make sure you're reaching out to your circuit clerk there. But that was an issue I think that may have looked at and thought, well, what's going on down there? Panola County, I think historically they've made a couple of visits to Panola County. So I guess that may be on the radar from issues in the past. I'm not really sure why. But again, the important thing here is they are not election officials, and they should not be in our precincts. And so we made sure they're aware of Mississippi law.
I apologize. I said DeSoto. I misspoke. You're right. It is Panola County, which is just a bit south of DeSoto. That, of course, the county seat, I believe, is Batesville of Panola, adjacent to Lafayette. So I apologize for that. Thank you for correcting me on that. I think you're right. It just feels like they're looking to possibly see something that they can leverage politically. And that's a shame. That is not what our Department of Justice, it's supposed to be blind in accordance with our founding, our laws, and that's what we expect. So I applaud you for informing them. Did they push back when you said, hey, you can't get within 30 feet here? What'd they say?
Well, so they had a follow-up meeting with Madison County the next day and basically told Madison they would respect my wishes, but they did not agree with us. So we're going to have a follow-up phone conversation within the next couple of weeks to talk about that. But one of the things, Gerard, again, the politicization of the DOJ is unfortunate. And so you've got to come off really from the get-go of thinking, well, wait a minute, what are they trying to stir up here in Mississippi? We've had a great election process. You look at the other states that they've tried to go into, Florida, Missouri. It unfortunately seems like they're trying to attack red states, and that's unfortunate. But again, we just simply stated the law here in Mississippi, and I'm going to stand behind that and stand in the gap for Mississippians.
I'll just say, and you may or may not choose to comment on this, I wonder if it's related to the fact that we have a high-profile race at the top of the ticket for governor, and essentially the Democrat-controlled DOJ maybe smells a little blood in the water, and thinks there's a chance here, and they're concerned about so-called voting irregularity that might assist the Republican candidate here. I hope that's not the case, but it's reasonable conclusion at a minimum, I would say. All right, so the polls close at 7 o'clock tonight, right? You can comment if you want. Now, I didn't mean to preempt you there.
No. I was simply going to say it's a beautiful day for them to enjoy a 30-foot view from the precincts. Polls close at 7 o'clock. And as people know, if you're in line by 7 p.m., you will be allowed to vote. Typically what happens there, Gerard, is the polling bailiff will come out and get behind the last person in line at 7 p.m. To make sure no other individuals come and get in line after 7, and then they will escort them through and let them vote, obviously, as we would want them to do.
What about any sort of security or law enforcement being present at any of the polling places? Is that the responsibility, Mr. Secretary, of your office, of the county? Is it a requirement? How does that work?
And so typically what you're going to see is a bailiff inside the precinct. If something goes wrong, then obviously they can call law enforcement. If there have been historical issues, you may see some type of patrol around there. But again, that's not something that our office would do. That's something at the local level. If they know of something that's going on, or if they want to be prepared for something, and God forbid anything happens today on election day, but everything's going as smoothly as we could hope today so far.
Yeah. Well, so what do you have any information that would say what are the times of day when the precincts are especially crowded? I just would assume it'd be, since most folks are working during the workday, before they start work, on their lunch break, or after they end their workday. Is that the case?
Typically so. And we saw this morning on my election day tool, as you and I have mentioned before, the traffic really spiked prior to 9 a.m. So folks were getting prepared. It actually went down for a little bit, so we had to add additional capacity. So the folks looking at my election day surpassed what we even thought would happen. So really happy and proud that folks are using that tool. But we see a rush around lunch, and then I know on the coast, being from there, usually after 5, between 5 and 7, a huge rush from folks coming from Chevron and Ingalls, and you'll see that all across the state. But that's just my personal experience of standing in the back of a truck waving at people on election day.
Yeah, I understand. Well, appreciate you coming on and giving us an update, and thanks to you and your team, and of course, as you indicated, all of the poll workers who come out and make sure that our elections are efficient and secure and safe and just provide a pleasant experience for voters. Appreciate that, Mr. Secretary. Thanks for coming on.
That's right. And let's say thank you to our men and women in uniform for making it possible for us to even go vote. And look, outside those sprinkles on those chocolate donuts, I think it's going to be a great day.
100%. Appreciate it. Talk at you soon. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.
We're coming right back, folks, in the Element Well studio.